we're going to go right into Maple Leaf because this was a very much a double-edged sword, but overall, I was very impressed. I was pleased.
So was I.
I was pleased.
The one thing I was, again, it felt like TNA in Canada. But
we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We're going to talk about the positives because there were quite a few positives. Yep. The first one was Mauro Ranallo. He has not missed a step. He is the best announcer right now in wrestling on mainstream.
I agree.
Mainstream wise, I mean, there are a lot of really good announcers. Don't get me wrong. This is no disrespect to anybody else, but when it feels like the guy creamed his pants every time, but yet still can call the action where I could close my eyes and see exactly what's going on, you are successful as a commentator. And Mauro Ranallo hit that in strides. You can tell this guy was passionate, informed. He was ready to go. So I was thrilled.
I agree with that.
Now, Don Callis was a great announcer too. This is a dynamite team.
Don Callis was the color commentator.
Yes.
So he was more like the
Jesse. He was like Jesse Ventura. Yeah, I got Jesse Ventura vibes from him. And
then Mauro Ranallo is a play-by-play, so he just calls it right as it is. So that's just kind of how that dynamic works.
They had great chemistry. Yeah. I want to hear more. I really liked how they did not rely on the history of Maple Leaf Pro, but they mentioned it often but tastefully. They got Bret Hart to do a voiceover for them, which was really cool. Bret Hart started in Maple Leaf.
Okay.
And then he went to Stampede, so there was that. I like that they had the old footage. This company's been around since like 1924.
It was disbanded and now it's brought back, so it has a nostalgic factor with it.
But they mention the history without leaning on the history. Yeah. So I thought that was really good.
It kind of like NWA, where they do mention a lot of history because they have a lot of titles and stuff, and very carny looking sort of vibe.
But that's the point.
But that's kind of the point of the promotion. Now I don't really know what direction Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling is going to go.
I think here's the difference between Maple Leaf and NWA. NWA was so established within the cultural zeitgeist of like wrestling in Americana, you wouldn't even think about that. But with Maple Leaf, maybe within the zeitgeist of Canada, that could be possibly the same situation. Yeah. But they also had the other powerhouse, which was Stampede.
Yep.
So it's kind of hard with this one. But I was like, I want to do some more exploration about the history of the company. This is brand new, came back after, I think, like 30 years out. Yeah. So, and NWA never really officially died. They just slowed down. They just
evolved and changed and slowed down and sped up. Yeah, so that makes sense.
I just kind of liked it. I thought it was a nice little break, and it showed some peak interest for me. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about Gisele Shaw directly because she was essentially the shining star within the women's matches in every single step of Maple Leaf.
And we're not saying that just because she happens to be in a relationship with the...
supposedly
in a relationship with the person who's running the joint. But Gisele Shaw did pretty good.
Yeah, she did very good. But I've always liked Gisele Shaw. She always did very, very well. She was out of action for a while because of an injury, and then she was gone from TNA.
And this was a fine opponent for her.
Oh, yeah. But then she also had the first match with Miyu. So, yeah. But this was a really fun match. I liked it. I mean, between the two, this was by far the best match. But, Athena is awesome.
Yeah.
She's very good. I just liked how Tony Khan was okay with doing something like this. I thought it was really cool with him doing that. Bully Ray is a national treasure, and nobody should speak ill will about him. He was fucking awesome during this show. Yeah. Him getting in the poor ring girl's face saying he's pretty darn handsome, that was great. The match with him and Raj, I almost said gender. Raj, it was very good. I liked it. The ball shots where he's just being a comedic goof was fucking great. I loved everything Bully Ray during this show.
And then him, especially with the interactions with Raj Deji. It kind of goes back to some of the more comedic stuff that maybe he had as Jinder Mahal.
Right. And then we had, Harley Cameron going into Bully's crotch, and they stare at each other, and just great reaction there. Bully Ray there was one thing about him. He's very serious. He looks like a threat, but he also has great comedic timing. He's a very well-rounded wrestler.
Yes.
And you could say whatever you want about his comments and his reaction on Busted Open. He is just a national treasure when he gets in a ring. He's funny, very serious.
He knows how to get the crowd to really get into it.
Exactly. With laughter and big boos and all in the same match too. That's hard. That's hard to do.
It is.
So I'm very happy. And Bully Ray is just great. He's awesome. And once again, another golden shining star was Mike Bailey.
Well, it's hard to have the bad Mike Bailey match.
Holy God. I mean, the El Phantasmo match was really good, but holy crap, this match was phenomenal. Jesus Christ.
And I've heard nothing but good things about that.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch it?
Yeah,
it was great.
I watched it, and I've heard nothing but good things afterwards. So
I'm telling you, Mike Bailey is kind of in that conversation of being Wrestler of the Year this year. I just don't think he's had a bad match. I think it's been pretty much impossible for him to have a bad match.
And there's not very many people that can tote that line, but Mike Bailey is one of them.
Like there are just years of people, and I think it's Mike Bailey's year this year. It's just been awesome, awesome. And I will give Maple Leaf a lot of credit. They got big names on this show.
I mean, I wouldn't say huge names. They got the names that I pretty much at this point expected, but I liked the mix. You had some newer stars. You had some stars from TNA. You've had stars from AEW.
You had stars from New Japan. Yep. I mean, these are people who've been on national television. Raj is a former WWE champion. And not just a WWE champion with a lengthy reign with it.
Yeah.
But then, Kylie Ray is a name that...
Yep, and she shined too. She had
she was pretty good. You had Josh Alexander, who people always tout as being that Cameron Grimes, just programmed in my mind. Trevor Lee, QT Marshall, who's great. I mean, they did really pack this with great people, and I just have to give them their flowers as it relates to who they actually managed to get.
And what I also like too is the fact that they really wanted to focus on getting a lot of Canadian stars, because
I did too.
There are a lot of stars in Canada. Of course, there aren't any major promotions based in Canada, but he really wants to showcase the talent that Canadians have as far as wrestling goes.
I'm hoping this is sort of the direction that Maple Leaf is going to go too, is put these Canadian stars on more of a national stage and getting the stars.
Because Raj Deji is Canadian.
Yep, he is Canadian.
Josh Alexander, of course, is Canadian. Mike Bailey is Canadian.
I don't think Konsuke is, but
no,
that's obviously. But El Phantasmo is Canadian, but they have that crossover.
Yeah,
with the New Japan and
WWE.
So
there were more
TNA.
Canadians represented than perhaps meets the eye.
They're in Canada.
Yeah, of course.
But they have the names outside of Canada too,
Yes.
which is what I was touting of. They really got some big names here, and I'm really happy about that. And I have to give credit to AEW and to TNA for allowing the bit larger stars to go there. I mean, Josh Alexander, you have Konsuke Takeshita, you have Athena. These are not, second cards. These are the world champions. These are the big guys. So I thought it was really good. So I wanted to give them their flowers as it relates to really packing it with something big. But with the positives...
Negative time.
Yep. TNA. It was TNA in Canada.
And what more do you expect from...
I know.
It's like, what more do you expect? Because Scott D'Amore ran TNA for God knows how long.
The problem with that is, it's like, why would I watch Canadian TNA when I can just watch
when
TNA.
You have TNA at home, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is TNA at home. It's stupid. I'm sorry, and this is not necessarily criticism because it's their first show in a long time. I'm gonna give them
but if Scott D'Amore is running it, you know exactly how it's gonna be.
Right. Maybe they'll start changing some. They'll start changing some things up when it comes, later down the line.
Yeah,
based on their structure.
I mean, essentially, this is a test run.
Right. So, I had to put a negative, and that was just one of them that sort of glared out at me was, the amount of TNA that this felt, The opening matches were, I wasn't a fan because it just was too much too quickly. They had to jerk off Canada, all well and good, milk and cookies for everybody, or maybe in Canada it's
maple syrup
and Canadian bacon.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I kind of want something more established with a brand. So I had to put that as a negative. It was hard to find negatives, to be honest.
It
really was. I mean, the multi-mans were fine, but it just wasn't the greatest impression for me personally. I have a double-edged sword here because, number one, I did like that they incorporated a lot of maybe higher-up Canadian indie talent, like Rohit Raja and Mike Rollins and Classy Ali, who was the Qatar champion. But
they're not like the biggest stars in the world.
I know, but as a novice, I wish they maybe we saw some
maybe a little more history with them.
Right, maybe some footage of them competing in other promotions. They have test footage, and they probably would be more than happy to provide it based on the smaller Canadian promotions. I don't care if it's in a fucking bar.
Again,
I wanted to see sort of what I'm getting into, other than
Canadian.
fairly good Indian Canadian looking guy.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's just sort of what I got from that.
Yeah.
Also, I think actually this is the last picture because there were a few. No, there's one more. The other thing was established divisions. We didn't get a lot of it.
I think that this is just more of a test run than anything. What this should remind you of is AEW back in 2019 or 2018, 2019, before they really started establishing their divisions and shows and stuff. Because remember, there was a period in time where they didn't have any shows going on at all.
That's true.
So you have to look at that with like, okay, this is essentially the first pay-per-view of if things go well, then a negotiation starts.
Right. Now
that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Now, at the opposite end of that, here's kind of where that falls apart. This PWA Championship Grail is the main champion of Maple Leaf Pro. It is established as their main champion.
Yeah.
It was introduced during the show, which leans to me that they are establishing something. They
might be just testing the waters. And according to what I understand with this championship belt, it is supposed to be defended with men and women. So maybe that's something they're testing out. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But from what I understand, it is going to be a dual-gendered championship.
Okay.
That is what I understand. I don't know all the details.
I guess it's hard because if this was a test run, bully, but, I'm going into this as saying that with the news beforehand that this is now a new established brand again. This is going to be a new wrestling promotion that's being run by Scott D'Amore. This is what I heard before anything happened, that this is a revival of Maple Leaf Pro.
And he's not going to revive it with established roster and championships and stuff.
This is an established champion. They established this champion. They had it defended. Like, what? Okay.
This is still not an established champion. This is something that's very much in the testing phase. They are not going to invest a lot of money and time into something if it's not going to be successful. Because wrestling is very ultra competitive space, and it requires a lot of money. So if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, then whatever. This is not established. Nothing here is established.
Well, then where the fuck did Tony Khan? Where the fuck did Scott D'Amore get the seed capital for these two shows?
I don't know. But they are not going to. He has not established a roster. He's obviously not established a title history or lineage or anything like that. We don't know when the next show is going to be.
So Wikipedia is wrong?
What do you mean?
The PWA Championship Grail is under Maple Leaf Pro's Wikipedia article that established today, or when this match happened.
Again, nothing is set in stone with this. You have to get that out of your head that, this is all set in stone. This is all of a sudden going to start happening. We don't know. Because that's not how AEW did not start like that.
All In was not an AEW sponsored show. Double or Nothing was the first show. They announced Dynamite.
No,
literally before
they announced Dynamite as a show, this is what their shows would be called, but they did not have a contract for another 3 months. So they weren't sure what was going to happen.
I thought that literally the very next Wednesday was the first Dynamite.
No, it wasn't. They didn't have any show go on for months.
I might
The
have
first
to.
show wasn't until October.
I might have to double check on that one. I feel like maybe we're kind of in a Mandela effect where I'm right and you're wrong, but I don't know.
Anyways,
I will say overall, I really liked this show. I like the vibe. Maybe a little tweak on presentation, and maybe if they start getting like a regular show going on, Triller TV or whatever, maybe we'll see more establishment. This is very nitpicky because overall, I'm going to give it a full thumbs up. I liked what I saw. I like the vibe, and I like that they are really trying to showcase more Canadian talent. But there's just a lot of lingering things, and I don't like being in the dark.
Right. Anyways, when we come back, we're going to talk about a TNA show.
Yes, we are.
The American version of it. The one that we don't have at home.
Yes.